Hello, travelers. This time, we'll talk about Ifa. Ifa is a new 4-star Anemo character who will appear in version 5.6, and he is the third male character from Natlan. Ifa's performance isn't particularly groundbreaking in terms of his team role, so not much is expected from him, but he can shine in specific situations. Here, we'll discuss how to use him, his optimal build, suitable team compositions, and his place in the game. Let's start by reviewing Ifa's performance. Ifa is a 4-star character who uses a bow, and his primary stat upon ascension is an increase in elemental mastery. His main role is to trigger elemental reactions on the field, particularly Swirl and related reactions, while also providing team healing. As such, Ifa shares the same role as characters like Sucrose, who trigger Anemo-based reactions on the field. However, his playstyle differs significantly, as Ifa resembles the Wanderer in terms of control, allowing him to hover in the air and unleash enhanced normal attacks. The core of his performance lies in his skill. When the skill is used, Ifa gains 80 points of Night Soul energy and enters the Night Soul state, causing him to float in the air. During this state, his normal attacks are enhanced. In this enhanced state, he can fire enhanced shots ranging from 10 to 12, either by pressing once or holding the attack button. According to previous information and videos, rapid pressing fires a single shot, while holding fires up to 12 shots. Therefore, holding the attack button is generally preferred. The first shot that hits an enemy generates 45 Anemo elemental particles, and subsequent shots trigger the Swirl reaction. Each shot deals damage and heals the team based on Ifa's elemental mastery. At skill level 9, with sufficient elemental mastery, you can expect around 441 HP healed per hit. When firing 12 shots with a held attack, you can expect to heal approximately 5,300 HP per rotation, but for a healer, this amount isn't particularly large. Ifa's elemental burst is relatively simple, dealing a circular AoE attack and pulling enemies in for a few seconds. If enemies are affected by Pyro, Hydro, Electro, or Cryo, up to 4 enemies are marked, and after a few seconds, they take additional damage based on the original element. In addition to his elemental skill, Ifa's first passive talent plays an important role. When Ifa is in the Night Soul state, he can enhance the team's Swirl and related reaction damage based on the total Night Soul energy the team possesses. For each point of Night Soul energy, Ifa gains 1 point of Ideals of Salvation, and each point of Ideals of Salvation increases Swirl and Electro-charged damage by 1.5%. Without constellations, Ifa can accumulate up to 150 points of Ideals of Salvation, boosting Swirl and Electro-charged damage by up to 225%. However, Ifa's skill alone only grants 80 points of Night Soul energy, so to achieve the maximum buff, he needs another Natlan character. Furthermore, Ifa gradually consumes Night Soul energy after using his skill, meaning the Swirl and Electro-charged damage buff cannot remain at its maximum constantly, and the buff effect diminishes the longer he stays on the field. Finally, his second passive talent is simple. When a team member triggers a Night Soul burst, Ifa gains elemental mastery for 10 seconds. With this, we've covered Ifa's basic performance. If you plan to play him as a Swirl driver who relies on elemental mastery and stays on the field, focus first on leveling him to 90 to maximize Swirl damage. Then, level up his skill to increase healing, and if you have extra resources, level his burst. Ifa's gameplay is very straightforward. Set up support characters first, e.g., applying debuffs or elements. Then use Ifa's elemental burst, activate his skill, and hold the attack button to fire enhanced shots until his Night Soul energy is depleted and the enhanced state ends. Next, we'll discuss Ifa's constellation effects. As a 4-star character, Ifa's constellations don't drastically change his playstyle, but some constellations significantly boost his performance. Constellation 1, C1, allows him to restore 6 elemental energy when attacking in his enhanced state, triggering once every 8 seconds, which reduces energy recharge requirements and improves burst uptime. Constellation 2, C2, increases the maximum Ideals of Salvation points from 150 to 200, raising the Swirl and Electro-charged damage buff from 225% to 300%. Additionally, if the team's Night Soul energy exceeds 60, for extra ideals of salvation points are granted per excess point. This means that when paired with another Natlan character like Ororon, Ifa can maintain the maximum Swirl and Electro-charged damage buff for longer. Constellation 3, C3, increases his skill level. Constellation 4, C4, extends the pull duration of his elemental burst to 3 seconds and boosts Ifa's elemental mastery by 100 for 15 seconds after using his burst. Constellation 5, C5, increases his burst level, and finally, Constellation 6, C6, grants a 50% chance to fire an additional shot per hit when holding the attack button in his enhanced state. This additional shot deals damage equal to 120% of Ifa's attack. Since a held attack fires 12 shots, C6 generates an average of 6 extra shots. The additional shot's damage isn't particularly high, but the increased hit count allows for more swirl reactions and greater team healing, making the effect excellent overall. Moreover, constellations extend Ifa's flight time, providing exploration benefits. Overall, C2 and C6 are recommended. C2 makes the buff more stable, while C6 increases healing and reaction frequency. Thus, Ifa can be considered a constellation-reliant character. Next, we'll talk about Ifa's optimal build. Like Sucrose, who relies on elemental mastery, it's preferable to equip Ifa with weapons that boost elemental mastery. Since Ifa is often paired with Electro characters, the effect of the Ring of Yak's weapon activates easily. Regarding artifacts, as his primary role is to trigger large amounts of swirl reactions on the field, the 4-piece Viridescent Veneer set, which significantly boosts swirl damage, is the most suitable. Ifa can be equipped with the 4-piece Viridescent Veneer set as a support character, but since Ororon is often in Ifa's team, it's better to give Viridescent Veneer to Ororon. Choose Elemental Mastery as the main stat for all artifacts, and like Sucrose, build Ifa as a full Elemental Mastery type. For substats, focus solely on Elemental Mastery and Energy Recharge Efficiency. Now, we'll discuss Ifa's recommended team compositions. Since Ifa boosts reaction damage based on Night Soul energy, it's important to pair him with another Natlan character. Ororon is the ideal choice for this requirement, and his synergy with the Electro-charged reaction is excellent, so Ororon will always be in Ifa's optimal team. For the third slot, Furina is a good choice as a Hydro character who provides buffs and elemental application. For the fourth slot, you can add another Hydro character like Yelan or Electro characters like Fischl or Kuki Shinobu. Another option is to include an additional Anemo character like Venti or Kazuha to trigger more swirl reactions. Finally, let's summarize Ifa's overall strength and pull value. As an on-field swirl driver, Ifa offers performance that matches or surpasses other characters in the same role in terms of team damage. However, there are some drawbacks. First, this isn't unique to Ifa, but teams relying on Swirl and Electro-charged are very strong against groups of enemies but relatively weak against single targets. In the Spiral Abyss, you often face single bosses, making damage output challenging. Second, despite expectations of Ifa being a healer, his team healing ability isn't particularly strong, resulting in lower team survivability compared to other healers. As a result, Ifa's synergy with Furina isn't great, which lowers his evaluation. Lastly, Ifa relies heavily on constellations. With C6, he can match or surpass Sucrose in team damage, but in reality, few players will obtain Ifa at C6, so his overall performance isn't exceptionally high. Even with C6, Ifa isn't a drastic upgrade over Sucrose. Sucrose performs well as a swirl driver even at low constellations and is strong as an off-field support, making Ifa's development value relatively low. The core issue with Ifa as a new character is that he doesn't bring anything particularly unique. Do we really need another on-field swirl driver? Sucrose, Kazuha, Heizou, and Xianyun can already fulfill this role. With many characters performing the same role and Swirl-based teams not being inherently strong, Aoife cannot be considered a particularly powerful 4-star character in the meta. The decision to build Aoife depends on how much you like him as a character. With that, we've covered everything we wanted to say about Aoife. I hope this guide has helped you understand Aoife better. Thank you for watching until the end, and I'll see you in the next video.